Before your podcast begins today, I'm going to give you some general facts about Morocco. Morocco is located in northern Africa, bordering both the Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. The country itself has two different climate zones. In the north, it is tropical, and in the south, it is desert containing oases. The flag of Morocco was re-established when they achieved independence in 1955. The red represents hardiness and strength. The green star represents the Seal of Solomon. They are very committed in creating a clean environment to live in, and they are one of the leaders in wind farms and solar panels.
Morocco has actively been involved in two organizations wishing to make changes on the climate change issue, the UNFCCC and Kyoto. The UNFCCC was first established before Kyoto, and it involved countries that wished to enact on climate change itself. These organizations establish bylaws that ensure countries participating in the UNFCCC are allowed to express their issues regarding climate change, ensuring that each country would be represented equally and would be able to address their exact issues on climate change itself. Kyoto was an international treaty established to reduce issues regarding climate change. The premise of Kyoto is based on an annex system, which tried to implement a market change approach to climate change. Describing the market-based approach and the annex system is rather complicated. So we're just going to move on from there.
And now for your regularly programmed podcast.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Smart Guys Talking About Smart Stuff. I'm Mark. I have a degree in everything, so try me.
I'm Travis. I got my degree in environmental studies at Harvard, undergrad and graduate school, and we are here to talk about climate change in Morocco, the opportunities and the vulnerabilities of the country.
How do you spell climate change again, buddy?
I'll have this chalk first. All right, C.
L. Alright, Travis, how about we get this show started?
Sounds good to me.
Alright, who do we have here today to test our knowledge?
We have some students from the University of Yale.
Alrighty, Travis. Looks like we've got some eager audience goers who want to ask some questions. You, sir, right there.
Hi, I'm James. First off, I want to say how much I love Smart Guys show.
We appreciate it.
And I wanted to ask you a couple questions. First off, what are some of the vulnerabilities in Morocco today?
That's a great question, James. Appreciate the support. But you know what? I'm going to let Travis take this one. Got 2 more sets to do.
All right. Well, Mark is getting swole. I'll answer your question, young man. First things first, it's a little weird because Morocco is partially on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, but also inland it was on a desert. So what's going on is on the coast, the shore levels are rising, which is flooding out crops, which means people have less food and it's hurting the crop yield. Whereas inland there's droughts and people have to fight with tourist attractions like hotels, pools, and golf courses because they're just stealing the water. And if there's not enough water, that's also hurting their crops. And the crops being gone is another vulnerability because just produce costs are higher. Soybeans cost more, corn costs more. Really only the upper middle class can afford them now because of this climate change. Those are little effects that are directly from climate change, but almost like trickle down from it. And then there's desertification because Morocco has part of Sahara in it, and they're losing some of their oases, my bad. And lastly, the temperature is projected to increase by 2 to 3 Celsius by 2050, which doesn't sound that bad, but the world average is an estimate of 1 degree Celsius increase of average. That's 2 to 3 times the international average, so that can be a little dangerous.
Hey, so on top of that, I'm really familiar with the indigenous people such as the Berbers. I'm kind of curious on how that actually affects them. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
That is a great question, actually. As you know, many of the old Berbers, they're nomadic people. So what they do is biannually they will migrate during the warmer times of the year. They go up the mountain for better grazing ground. Then when it gets colder, they go to the bottom because winter mountains is cold. And so since there are droughts, there's less water for these plants to grow and there's less food for them to eat. But at the same time, because of desertification, there's less area for these plants to even grow. So there's even less food for their animals to eat. And livestock is really how the nomadic people make their living. Without it, they have no money, they have nothing to eat. They're self-sustained, but there's no way to help them.
Hold on now, Travis. Indigenous people aren't the only people affected by this whole mess. You're forgetting about the women, the poor, and the elderly, or as I like to call it, WAPA. Women are often affected because they are tasked with the ability of bringing home food and water for their family. Without these important elements, families can often starve, become malnourished, and not have enough to eat for the rest of the year. Next vulnerable population is the poor.
The poor often lack forms of housing and shelter. With increased extreme weather and devastating floods, whatever makeshift tenements the poor have set up will be eliminated, therefore resulting in mass casualties and the decline of the population itself.
The final population that's susceptible to climate change is the elderly.
As we all know, the older you get, the weaker you get. That also means you have a weaker immune system. With climate change and increased flooding, diseases are often associated with those two factors. The more exposure an elderly person has to disease, the weaker that they become, and unfortunately, that can lead to death.
So what it sounds like you guys are saying is that there's nothing really that Morocco can do. It sounds like they're in a really bad situation.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because actually, there are several good things that are kind of happening. I'm not saying climate change is good. I'm saying we're just trying to find the best out of it. First things first, there's the Sahara Desert in Morocco, which has the most sunlight out of any area in the whole world. So we have this brand new solar power plant, which is only 1/3 of the way done, but it's already the 3rd largest solar power plant in the world. So that's a good plus, because that's a lot of renewable energy. And then we've also lifted subsidies on fossil fuels in the country, which encourages companies to invest more in clean energy. So that will reduce our carbon footprint, which is really important. Then we have the largest wind farm in Africa, in Morocco. So that helps with more clean energy that does not involve fossil fuels. And then we're also working on maintaining the water quality and getting rid of pollution. And lastly, Morocco is one of the few countries that can produce something called argan oil, which comes from trees, which produce these nuts called argan nuts. You extract the oil. And the oil is a healthy cooking alternative compared to olive oil and vegetable oil. And the more trees will encourage us to grow more trees, taking the CO2. Action comes out. It's good for the environment. And it's also good for the economy because we have a strong market.
Hi, I'm an econ major at Yale, and I really enjoy learning about Morocco. Can you tell me a little about their economic system during the Industrial Revolution?
Prior to the introduction of Islam and Western technology, tribes in northern Africa depend on primal tools and survival skills passed down from each lineage. One valuable asset that each tribe possesses was their ability to produce spices, and this would play a crucial role in explaining the reason for European and Islamic dominance in this area. Ingredients for harvesting and creating spices such as nutmeg could be traded between tribes in hopes of obtaining an object of interest.
Morocco was colonized during the Industrial Revolution and had conflicting interests. The French and Portuguese influences on Morocco caused conflicts and changes in religious and cultural ideals. They shifted to a heavy Islamic influence, which has continued to this day. Morocco's economy is made up of 3 main sections: agriculture, tourism, and information technology. Agriculture has come up with practical methods for sustaining livestock. Tourism raises awareness for the desertification of oases and increases awareness for the risk of ocean wildlife. Information technology plays an important part in combating climate change. By 2030, Morocco is planning to have the world's largest solar panel farm.
The history of fossil fuel burning in Morocco began in the late 1960s to early 1970s, just before the Industrial Revolution. Fossil fuel energy consumption in Morocco hit its peak in 2005, reaching 89.7%, and its low in 1971 at 73.4%. Currently, Morocco relies mostly on fossil fuels to meet its domestic energy demand. Fossil fuels currently account for 68% of installed capacity in Morocco, and the remaining 32% come from renewable energy sources such as wind, hydro, and solar. 93% of Morocco's total primary energy consumption comes from oil, natural gas, and coal, but the government aims to generate 42% of electric from renewable energy sources by 2020.
Morocco has the Mamor Forest near Rabat that consists of 60,000 hectares of cork oak. Since deforestation is a major contributor to carbon emissions, there have been several management programs over the years, including restoration attempts, introducing exotic tree species, and seeding and replanting of the cork oak. Clean renewable energy is a profit for everyone. With increased reliance on clean energy, there's less need for fossil fuels. Morocco can take their money and invest it in different places. People who live in Morocco, who live in the rural areas, might not have access to electricity. With the invention of solar and wind energy, they can get that sort of electricity now. Increasing the amount of wind farms and solar panels in Morocco helps their reputation as a leading innovator against climate change, which increases their status in the world, and it shows that they are capable of being a developed country. Morocco has lifted subsidies on diesel, gasoline, and other fossil fuels. Now, with this, there's going to be less greenhouse gases released into the atmosphere, which gives you cleaner air. Now, cleaner air in the workplace results in better working conditions and healthier populations. So, a healthy population is good for the entire country. Economic growth also stems from this. You already have a rapidly growing industry in Morocco of alternative energy. Lifting these subsidies will help develop their clean energy. Morocco has Africa's largest wind farm. Using wind energy creates less of a reliance on fossil fuels, which in turn creates less carbon emissions, which creates a more clean air. Now, using the wind farm helps boost Morocco's economy. They can export the energy that they create, and it creates less of a need to import fossil fuels, which helps boost their economy and can help make them a developed country. Now, a shift to clean energy creates a more progressive atmosphere, and in the world, people will regard Morocco as a leading innovator. Protecting the coastlines of Morocco will help communities keep their source of water for drinking and agriculture clean. Now, the ecosystems nearby will also be able to flourish. There will be costs for keeping the coastlines clean, but the use of agriculture helps offset those costs, which is a big part of Morocco's economy. The coastline communities will still have a source of water regardless if there's a drought, which is common more inland in Morocco. Morocco is producing argan oil, and now farming for argan oil will help create more trees. They'll plant more, they'll grow more, which will boost their economy as an agricultural export. And there's proven health benefits for argan oil, which will increase the demand for the product. And in exporting this product, this will help Morocco's culture spread and introduce it to countries that may not be familiar with their culture.
Whoa, where are we?
We're in a new studio.
We got more money in the budget?
We got windows,
I have new pants.
steel painting.
New shirt.
Right? Same suit.
Alrighty. Well, with the more money that we've got, we were able to bring in a think tank group that was able to think about ways to reduce climate change in Morocco. This group was founded by 4 undergraduate students from MSU.
Let's have a check-in with them and see what they have to say.
Alrighty, I'm here with all three members of Global Incorporated, the startup that we're introducing today. Can you guys go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Hi, I'm James Bozak, president of Global Incorporated. We were inspired by our IAH 206 class, specifically Kyle White and A. Rice. So we believe that we have a simple yet effective solution for Morocco in further reducing their greenhouse gas emissions in compliance with what their already prior platform was in Kyoto and the upcoming Paris Agreement.
I'm Scott Fitch, I'm Vice President.
I'm Griffin Armstrong, and I'm the CFO.
So we as Global Incorporated believe that after the Paris COP meeting in Morocco, Morocco should continue to reduce their emissions and turn to more clean energy sources such as wind, hydro, and solar. Currently, right now, Moroccan government believes without a doubt that by 2020, with $13 billion, they will be able to reduce their energy needs to using renewable energy sources to 42%. We believe that if we continue at this rate and put into place some of our platforms in doing so, we believe that with $2.4 billion, we'll be able to increase this by 8% up to 50% renewable energy sources.
Speaking with King Mohammed VI personally, I know he is very invested in reaching that 42% goal by 2020. But with this $2.5 additional billion to reach that goal, we recommend that Morocco allocate resources to maintaining the Mediterranean Sea and creating an habitable environment for all sea life. Now, fishing is an important part of Morocco, and making sure that their sea life is in good hands is very important for them.
Now, this transition towards clean energy is going to be very expensive, so it's going to siphon a lot of money away from different issues that are going on that need funding in Morocco. One of these, for example, is there's a high frequency of droughts, and this funding is going to take away from that. It's going to be a lot harder to kind of export food into the country during these times that they're having drought issues and food shortages. And there's also the other issue, which is the desertification of oases in Morocco, and that will potentially lose funding in order to go towards clean energy, and this could result in higher taxes for Morocco citizens, which is really bad for the economy because they can barely pay them as it is. So the continued investments and growth in the alternative energy sector will help out with Morocco's revenue in the long run. And this revenue will be able to be put towards women's programs and children's programs. They are a very vulnerable population, so this will really help them out. For example, women have to deal with lower pay and social inequality.
So in conclusion, Global Incorporated plans on investing in renewable energy sources such as wind, hydro, and solar.
We recommend that Morocco invest in maintaining the Mediterranean Sea as well.
In the short term, they're going to have to deal with the lack of funding towards droughts and then desertification of oases. But in the long term, they're going to be able to put that funding that they get from, the revenue they get from the alternative energy sector, and they're going to be able to put that towards women's and children's programs.
Well, I don't know about you, Travis, but there's a really big smart batch of kids here.
I would say the opposite. Most didn't know much.
Depends on who you're talking to, I guess. Alrighty. This is the part of our podcast where we like to ask questions and answers for some undergraduate students.
We're here at Michigan State University to ask students walking by what they know about climate change and Morocco.
Let's get to it.
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. What's your name?
Chris.
I'm Lauren.
Kelsey. Emma.
What's your major?
Psychology.
All right.
Kinesiology.
Oh, me too.
Mechanical engineering.
Major?
Economics.
Perfect.
We're ready to ask you some questions.
So a couple questions for you. Would you happen to know any doctrines that are established for climate change?
No.
Do you feel as if your education system did a good job educating you on what climate change is?
It did not. No, I do not feel that way.
Not really. Honestly, not really.
Not really.
No.
Sure.
Sure?
Maybe.
You don't sound too confident.
Have you ever heard of Kyoto Protocol? Anything of that sort?
No, sir.
No. What do you know about the country Morocco?
It's in Africa. I know it's close to the Mediterranean Sea, but that's about it.
That's more than most people. You're
Honestly, no.
How would you say climate change affects people?
Well, I know like all the glaciers are melting and like it's getting hotter, but that's about it.
Well, climate change increases natural disasters, which affects people in impoverished areas.
Out of all the countries in this vast world, would you say that there are any specifically that pollute the most?
Probably us, United States. I feel like for sure. Yeah. Or hot, like European countries, but I'd say probably U.S. is first.
So you're pretty much blaming climate change on all of us?
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, it's our fault.
Sounds pretty good.
perfect. What's your name, young man?
Lucas.
And what is your major?
Food science.
We're with Lucas to talk about climate change in Morocco. Do you know much about the country of Morocco?
Not particularly.
All right, most people don't. You're okay. You're in the norm. Do you feel like in high school, do you think you were taught enough about climate change to really understand what's going on?
I was taught the word climate change. I was taught that it was bad and that we should try and fix it. I wasn't taught much about it, though.
All right. And the two leading polluters are China and the United States, but the United States is the highest per capita.
Okay.
Why do you think we don't do more
Well,
to fix that?
According to Merchants of Doubt, and there's a whole smear campaign that started off by the tobacco company. The tobacco company actually made a policy and an entire way of looking at science and globally funded science, and made a plan, credit to IAH 231B for knowledge out and public disclosure, but they will take science and they'll take the essence of science, which is that we're never done learning, and they'll use that to corrupt the idea of that stuff we already know can be learned more about. So in essence, we started off with tobacco and how people thought tobacco was not great, and then they took science and made it take 30 more years than necessary just to get tobacco to be regulated. They then went to acid rain and started to blame volcanoes and that stuff for the sulfur emissions. And then they're going on to such as holes in the ozone, still blaming volcanoes. Well, now they're using the same technique to do global warming all across the country. And it's normally funded by a bunch of public relation campaigns, especially people like Frederick Seitz, who helped create this entire way of looking at things, which is really destroying the economy and the environment.
Would you consider yourself more woke than the average student?
Yes.
I would too.
Yes.
Thank you so much, man.
We
Thank
need
you.
more people like this in
Thank
the
you.
world.
We really appreciate it.
So as you can see, Mark, the general population is not as educated on climate change as they probably should be.
Looks like we're just gonna have to deal with it.
Or help educate people. Either way, there's no wrong answer.